From Channel 9.
News. The British recapture of the Falklands is now complete. The last outpost held by Argentina is now under the British flag. Martha Teichner has that report from London and a look at the fighting for the Falklands in some film that was released in London today.
The Ministry of Defense today announced that the barren South Sandwich Island of Toul has now fallen to the British. The South Sandwich Islands are a dependency of the Falklands, 1,100 miles away. Argentine scientists at a weather station there apparently gave up without a fight. In another look at action in the Falkland Islands, film reached Britain today of the tense days in late May after British troops had gone ashore on East Falkland before the fall of Goose Green. Ships of the British task force circled San Carlos water, protecting each other, vulnerable to daily Argentine air attacks. Here, an Argentine jet is blown up in mid-air by a British missile. Today's film shows the most graphic pictures so far of defeated Argentine troops after the fall of Goose Green, May 28th, as they are marched along blindfolded at gunpoint by British paratroops. Then the injured, cold and miserable, and the dead. Today in Britain, the city of Coventry honored the dead of her namesake ship, HMS Coventry, sunk May 26th. The memorial service was held in Coventry Cathedral. Coventry's captain, the burns on his face still healing, read from the Bible. The service ended, as all the British memorials have, with a hymn for those in peril on the sea. Martha Teichner, CBS News, London.
What's that cereal you're enjoying?
Well, it has delicious apple slices and cinnamon, and they call it fruit and, I forget.
New Post Fruit and Fiber cereal. It tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
The name? With all these apples, it's got to be apple something. Or fruit something.
New Fruit and Fiber tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
Sure, it's fruit and... Billy, what is it?
New Fruit and Fiber, also with dates, raisins, and walnuts. It tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
What's the last thing people ask for in thousands of restaurants?
Sanka brand, please.
Sanka brand decaffeinated coffee? Certainly.
It's 100% real coffee, and it doesn't make you nervous or lose sleep because of too much caffeine. So if you enjoy it at home, enjoy it away from home, too.
Mr. Young?
More Sanka brand, please. Next time you're out, make Sanka brand the last thing you ask for.
Sanka brand. Good coffee that makes good sense anywhere.
The ceasefire in Lebanon still seems to be holding, and Israel said today it would stick to its fragile truce with the Palestine Liberation Organization. As Israelis and their Christian allies surrounded the guerrilla stronghold in Beirut, U.S. envoy Philip Habib met with Lebanon's president in an effort to restore order, rebuild the government, and regain the peace. But the PLO is still carrying on the fight for public opinion. Don Kladstrup reports from Beirut.
You say this is a beauty shop?
Yes, here it is. You can see it. It was destroyed by a rocket.
The battle for hearts and minds. It is one battle the PLO does not want to lose. Ever since the invasion began, the PLO has been trying to portray the Israelis as killers of innocent civilians, whose planes have destroyed schools, stores, and apartment buildings. Now the PLO is stepping up its effort by giving tours to foreign journalists.
Listen, here is the 7 DC, here are the rockets.
The PLO denies hiding weapons in such places. Rules forbid it, according to a spokesman. What is not said is that PLO officials live and work here. The very nerve center of their organization is nearby. No question, many innocent people have been killed. But with Palestinian forces now concentrated in West Beirut and all exits to the outside cut off by the Israelis, it's sometimes almost impossible to separate the guerrillas' presence from that of innocent civilians. Next to a residential neighborhood, for instance, are anti-aircraft guns. The PLO is upset by news reports saying that its forces are losing.
These are locations for our fighters, and they are still fighting, as you see. This blood is the blood of a Palestinian fighter. He has been killed, and this is another one. He is replacing him.
Sometimes the propaganda war gets a little deep.
Now you have to get out.
An unexploded bomb is found and carried to photographers. Put it on the ground, says an officer. No, no, keep holding it, says another. But it's very heavy, says the one who's about to collapse. Comical, it may sometimes be. But guerrillas are deadly serious about not wanting to look like losers. They know more fighting is likely. They also realize the consequences if the help that they've been counting on from other Arab countries does not begin arriving soon. Don Cladstrip, CBS News, Beirut.
Lebanon's National Salvation Committee met today for the first time. It's intent on preventing a showdown between Israel and the PLO in Beirut. The committee consists of Lebanon's top 3 government officials and 4 leaders of rival Christian and Muslim factions. Israeli Prime Minister Begin said today his forces would not occupy Lebanon, but he said on the CBS News broadcast Face the Nation that they may stay for as long as 7 weeks. Begin is scheduled to meet with President Reagan at the White House tomorrow.
The position that you will be using for this exercise is called the prone supported relaxed firing position.
It's working. Millions of people like you have fallen asleep faster with Unisom, the #1 sleep aid in America. In clinical tests, Unisom helped people feel drowsy, so they fell asleep faster, an average of 23 minutes faster than they did without Unisom, and slept better all night. Unisom, proven in clinical tests and by people like you. For occasional sleeplessness, fall asleep faster and rest assured with Unisom.
I'm chewing gum again. It's wonderful. For years I couldn't because gum stuck to my dental work, but now there's Freedent gum. It doesn't stick, so I can enjoy all the pleasures of chewing gum again. The delicious flavor, fresh, clean breath, and refreshing taste, all that's possible again with Freedent gum from Wrigley's. It comes in peppermint and spearmint. You'll love it.
Feel free to chew Freedent.
It won't stick to most dental work.
Freedent gum.
Was John Hinckley sane or insane when he fired the gun that wounded President Reagan? The jury weighing that question met again today and again failed to reach a verdict. The jury will try again tomorrow, the 4th day of deliberations. 4 years ago, the WACS, the Women's Army Corps, was abolished, and women were welcomed into the regular Army. Now there are more than 75,000 women soldiers, and many are finding that some problems encountered by women out of uniform are no different from those encountered by women in uniform. Betty Ann Bowser has the story.
It may be the new Army, but if you are a woman in this new Army, it is highly probable that you will experience some form of sexual harassment. By the Army's own definition, that can be anything from vulgar language to forced physical contact of a sexual nature.
One of my sergeants, I wouldn't go to bed with him or let him hug on me and everything. So he went and told my first sergeant I was becoming a pain, you know, because I wouldn't do some of the things he wanted me to do.
And then if you say no to him, that's it, because you're a bad mark. That's it. They'll say bad things about you, that you've been around all this post, that either you're lesbian or you don't like men.
The Army admits it has a problem. 2 internal Army studies conducted last year showed that overwhelmingly both men and women soldiers view sexual harassment as serious. In one study, 75% of the women said they'd been the victim of an incident in the preceding 12 months.
One night I was in the TV room and I got molested by a man. I was asleep. And the man decided to start touching me. I almost jumped off and killed him.
54% of the male soldiers in one survey said they had witnessed or knew of sexual harassment of women soldiers.
Women, before they leave their room, you know, they're scared to leave with a robe on or something like that, you know. because guys are waiting up and down the hallways, you know, so they have to be fully dressed before they leave the bedroom.
In another study, 21% of the women said they avoided post theaters, and 28% said they would not eat in mess halls because they felt threatened by sexual harassment. And one of the studies concluded sexual harassment was a continuing problem in the Army because most women were afraid to report it or thought if they did report it, nothing would happen.
Well, it'd be about 1 or 2 in the morning. I'd be asleep, and the CQs have a key to every room on the building here, and they just open up the door and walk on in.
He put his hands on you?
Oh, he tried.
Did you report him?
Yes, I did.
What happened?
It only went about to his platoon sergeant, and that was about as high as it went. Nothing ever really happened.
And because of him, you moved off the base?
Mm-hmm.
All of the soldiers you've just heard from are based at Fort Meade, Maryland. They were not part of the Army surveys. And some of the incidents they described did not take place at Fort Meade. The Army says when it comes to sexual harassment, Fort Meade is no better, no worse than any other installation. And when CBS News told Post Commander Barton Hayward what soldiers there had alleged, he said he would investigate.
It's tragic if we have people in the Army, soldiers, who feel that these sorts of things are not going to be taken care of, are not going to be handled by the chain of command. That's a bad commentary on leaders. It's a bad commentary on the chain of command, and it shouldn't happen.
A pilot program to combat sexual harassment in the Army is being designed at Forces Command Headquarters here at Fort McPherson, Georgia. The program is aimed primarily at people at the lower end of the command structure. Sergeants, lieutenants, and captains, the people to whom women soldiers so often say they are reluctant to report sexual harassment. This videotape is part of the pilot program. It depicts harassment experienced by 2 women soldiers while jogging. The actors are all real soldiers, and while the tape was being made, several incidents occurred that were incorporated into the presentation.
Hey, look at those 2 big leg heifers coming down the road.
All right. Good. All right, man. Come here. Come here with me.
I've had it. Why should we have to put up with all that crap anyway?
The tape has already been shown to about 150 soldiers at Fort McPherson.
I am very much more enlightened than I was before.
Do you take it more seriously now?
Yes, definitely.
It better be getting through to all of them, really. It's coming across loud and clear across the board, coming from the top down, and it's getting down, I think, to the lowest level at this time.
Once you have a clear standard, then you just make sure that you have the discipline to enforce that standard, to maintain that standard. And that's what we're trying to do with this program. And that's how we're going to change attitudes.
What we need to work is making everybody proficient enough to do the job. And you can't do it with preset ideas of weaker and stronger.
Already, the Army is urging its equal opportunity officers to discuss relationships between men and women in routine training classes. And the pilot program is being tested at a number of bases. Eventually, the leadership says it hopes to develop an Army-wide program to combat the problem. In the meantime, the Army says it's determined from the top general on down to deliver to women soldiers what its recruiting song promises.
Attack!
Be all that you can be. Betty Ann Bowser, CBS News, Fort McPherson, Georgia.
No longer will a newly crowned Miss America tearfully stroll down the Atlantic City runway hearing these words. There she is, Miss America. There she is, your ideal. Walking on air, she is. Fairest of the fair, she is, Miss America. It's been the theme song for the Miss America contest for 15 years. An agreement for its use has now expired. Sponsors of the pageant say composer Bernie Wayne wants too much money for a renewal. So another American tradition bites the dust.
When we tell you Michelin radials last and last,
That's no surprise.
when we tell you Michelin radials save gas,
That's no surprise.
but when we tell you you can get Michelins for about the same price as other leading radials,
Now that's a surprise.
But it's true. We're America's fastest growing tire company. We make the tire you need at a price you can afford. See your Michelin dealer and prices set for your car. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Michelin, we put America on radios.
Why do 9 out of 10 hospitals use milk of magnesia for relief of constipation? Most said because it's gentle and dependable. That's why you should use Phillips. Most doctors agree milk of magnesia is gentler than the ingredient in both these laxatives. And unlike bulk laxatives that can take days to work, Phillips works dependably, usually overnight. Remember, 9 out of 10 hospitals use milk of magnesia. So get Phillips, regular, mint, or convenient mint tablets.
With the nation's interstate highways crumbling and money for repair scarce, Arkansas has come up with a plan it hopes will help. Have big trucks drive in the wrong lane, the passing lane, to equalize wear. Wyatt Andrews reports.
We don't dance two-step anymore.
With 9 years of driving behind him, Billy Long thought he'd seen it all on the road, until he saw this. Some say it just doesn't seem natural. Truckers can get a ticket for this in other states. But here, Arkansas officials are asking truckers to use the left lane on the interstate to equalize pavement wear, the sign says. It's a good idea to Billy Long. To him, the right-hand lane of an interstate is rarely comfortable. Truckers complain about the beating they take by what they call truck dips in the more worn-down right lanes.
If you get in the right lane and you feel a lot more bumping and so forth, and the left lane rides smoother as far as being in a truck, you know, where you feel the ride.
They talk about it in Arkansas truck stops. Most agree with Billy.
For the comfort of driving, the left-hand lane's better because it's smoother. Man, it's important to ride as comfortable as you can all the time.
And you find that in the left lane?
You do in Arkansas, I guarantee you. Okay, fire plug, take care. I'm over here in this traffic jam. We'll see you later. I'm out going to Russellville.
Not everyone likes the fast lane. Maxie Blanton thinks it's more dangerous.
That's the worst blind spot on a truck is on the right side because you can pretty well see on the left side. And a lot of people tend to slip up the side of the truck and like to ride there. I don't know why.
But to the major truck companies and to their Washington lobbyists, this is not just a debate over blind spots and smooth driving. The day that truckers in Arkansas or anywhere else admit that they are responsible for the nation's crumbling interstate system could also be the day that Congress hits the trucking industry with heavy new taxes. In fact, the interstate system is wearing out. It's in need of billions in new taxes for repairs, and government studies blame heavy trucks for the damage. The trucking lobby says the weather, not truck weight, is the highway's worst enemy.
I think they are building a case against the truckers, and if you look on the back of each one of these trucks that's going up and down the highway, you'll see anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 that's paid by that vehicle for 1 year. And I dare say the automobiles that's going up and down the highway, along with that truck tearing up the highway, that you can add 33 of them up, and you won't come up to that amount of money.
The taxes paid by these trucks might seem impressive, but the Reagan administration says it's not enough compared with what the trucks really owe. In Arkansas, officials hope to save $2 million a year in repair costs by moving trucks to the left.
I think the truckers, in order to continue to have good roads, are going to have to fake some music, or they're going to be paying a lot more because they're riding on deteriorated highways.
Billy Long, meanwhile, has given little thought to the tax differences between cars and trucks, less to the complex politics that may force him to pay more in taxes. Truckers hold to simpler truths. Yes, trucks are tearing up the road, but trucks, as he put it, are already taxed to death. And add to that another trucker's truth, that the interstate system, begun in 1956, is getting old, and that it's getting old in the right lane first. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Interstate 40, Arkansas.
If the game was half as complicated as some of these writers make out it is, baseball player Bucky Walters once said, a lot of us boys from the farm would never have been able to make a living at it. Today, complicated or not, the boys from the electronics labs also make a living at it. David Dow has that story.
Professional baseball is as traditional as chewing tobacco. Slow, some say. It took just 100 years for this announcement.
Leading off for Detroit, designated hitter Mike Ivy.
And the designated hitter still hasn't made the lineup in the National League. But behind the scenes, managers are being dragged by their designer knickers into something truly revolutionary, for baseball anyway, the electronic age.
He's the fifth batter up in the inning. There's 2 outs and runners on first and third, and unfortunately, he struck out.
Kirk Smith, statistician for the San Francisco Giants, is loading game information into a computer. Back come printouts. They'll tell you how individual Giant hitters and pitchers perform against players on opposing teams, and in what situations. The bottom line of thousands of hours of pitch-by-pitch record keeping. The cards are delivered to the eager hands of manager Frank Robinson to help with strategy and lineups.
You get ribbon from the players. They say, did the computer get me today? Am I in there? Did the computer get me today? But that doesn't bother me. I know that this can be a help. I know it's still not going to go out there, hit, run, throw, and field for me, but it certainly can be a help, and it gives me an advantage where I don't have to guess at something. I see it. It's straight down here in black and white.
What's in black and white sometimes amazes even Ralph Nelson, guru of the Giants' computer system.
Last year we benched Larry Hernan, who was hitting 380 at the time, and then Steve Rogers because he hadn't had a hit against the guy in 3 years. And we put in a different guy who was not hitting well, Jim Wolford, and Jim Wolford hit really well that day.
And strategy isn't all.
Runner at second hits one deep to center. That one is hit way back there into center field, and it is gone.
In Oakland, a computer gives the A's broadcasters all the figures the most avid listener could want.
Batting just .209 against right-hand pitching, while hitting .333 against left-handed.
And it's even invented a new statistic for those who think RBIs and ERAs aren't enough. RPGs, runs per game, a composite of all the other offensive statistics. So far, the figures stop here. Team officials say manager Billy Martin just isn't a stat man. On that score, he has company.
Do you need a computer? No. I myself, now I don't know that I'm right, but I feel like I contain everything right up here.
Computers are a new, almost secret part of baseball strategy and scouting. Only 6 of 26 major league teams admit to having their own systems. The Chicago White Sox wouldn't even let CBS News into Comiskey Park to see how their system works. But the man who sold it to them, Matt Levin, has no such reservations. He sees a computer in every team's batting order.
10 years from now, maybe 20 years from now, all managers will be comfortable with it. And then it'll be a question of how creative and imaginative they are using them.
And what if one day all managers do play with lineups like a child plays computer baseball? Will the human element be lost? Probably not. There are some things a computer just can't control yet. David Dow, CBS News, Oakland.
Millions of Soviets voted today, but most attention seemed focused not on the election, but on one of the voters. President Brezhnev attracted unusual attention because he has been ailing. He voted in Moscow in local elections. Soviets may vote only for or against the one candidate nominated for each post. Efforts by Iraq's government to survive may be at the root of an announcement by President Hussein. He said today he's withdrawing his troops from Iran. Iraq invaded almost 2 years ago, but Iran recently clobbered Iraqi troops and threatened to fight all the way to Baghdad to oust Hussein.
When Boeing sends sales teams worldwide, they're given Citicorp traveler's checks because who knows where they might end up.
Citicorp. Of course.
Accepted round the world.
Citicorp traveler's checks.
Oh, refunds in thousands of locations.
Thank you. We got to get to the airport.
Have to catch a plane, sir?
No, sell one.
Sell one?
Because you never know where you might end up. Citicorp traveler's checks.
This is one of France's great treasures, the famed three-star restaurant G&G Boyer. Its owner is Gerard Boyer, the renowned chef and wine connoisseur. Recently, he tasted Taylor California Cellars Chardonnay.
I found Taylor California Cellar Chardonnay to be dry, well-balanced, perfect for the kind of food I serve in my restaurant. In fact, this Chardonnay is so good that I wish it were available in France.
Taylor California Cellars, a better Chardonnay. Judge for yourself.
While many of you were celebrating Father's Day today, you probably failed to notice that today is also National Bald Eagle Day, the very first National Bald Eagle Day. In Philadelphia, there was a celebration. It was 200 years ago that the bald eagle was chosen for the Great Seal of the United States, and the original oil painting of the Great Seal was on display. While the nation has prospered, the nation's symbol has spent many years fighting for its existence. Harold Dow has more on that.
To look a bald eagle in the eye is to sense its power, cunning, and independence. So it was hardly a fair fight 200 years ago today when Ben Franklin's choice to be our national symbol, the wild turkey, lost that honor, talons down, to the majestic bald eagle. They're not bald, actually. Both male and female birds grow the distinctive white head feathers at about age 5. Another deception, this seemingly mighty bird of prey is also one of nature's most delicate species. It has but one predator, man. Wildlife experts predict scenes like this, Americans observing their national symbol in the wild, will become fewer and fewer as man encroaches on the eagle's habitat.
This density of people, kids, guns, and this type of thing, we're going to see the ultimate elimination of this nestry here. I hope I'm wrong, but
only Alaska, with its abundant streams and isolated forests, supports a healthy eagle population. But it is not just man's presence, but also his products that threaten the species. During the 50s and 60s, the eagle population was almost wiped out by the widespread use of pesticides like DDT. Although banned in 1972, its residue, DDE, is still found in the systems of many mating birds, causing barren nests.
The eggshells become so thin that they crack before they're ready to hatch.
Today, the surviving 1,400 breeding pairs and their young are carefully monitored, and although the eagle population has doubled since the banning of DDT, they remain listed as endangered or threatened in the lower 48 states. Dave Sidden runs a rehabilitation center for injured birds of prey. This 3-year-old was poisoned by strychnine bait left for a coyote. Sidden hopes to return him to the wilds within the next 2 or 3 days. But before he can be released, he must be exercised, his wing muscles strengthened.
There's no better feeling, in my estimation, than watching one of these birds fly free again.
It will take dedication and money to save the bald eagle. But one wildlife expert told us the American bald eagle isn't just any endangered species. It's the symbol of our nation, and we cannot afford to let it fly off into extinction. Harold Dow, CBS News, near Klamath Falls, Oregon.
This late word, the European Common Market has now lifted its ban on trade with Argentina, but the foreign ministers warned they'd reimpose the ban if Argentina resumed its fight for the Falkland Islands. That's the news. I'm Morton Dean, CBS News, New York. Have a good evening and a good week.
Why do you use Preparation H?
Based on the way it treats me, I love it. It's a good friend. Preparation H relieves the swelling, it relieves the itching, relieves the pain. I can relate to my family. I can go to work and feel productive again.
That's right. Preparation H often gives temporary relief from pain and itch flare-ups, even helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues.
It's a good friend.
Preparation H relieves pain and itch, even helps shrink swelling.
Ace Hardware Theater presents Help Me Out on the Lone Prairie. Remember, when you face one of life's little hardware needs,
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware man.
This is CBS.
Sugar Babies,
Babies. Broadway's hottest ticket is now the most exciting theatrical event of the year, all over the country. Sugar Babies. It's singing, it's dancing, it's laughs and gags and all those beautiful girls. Sugar Babies, starring Eddie Bracken and Mimi Hines. Sugar Babies, just for the fun of it.
This is really embarrassing.
2 years ago, Virginia National Bank gave away Butter Bear. Some of us didn't.